guest today formed his first band called The Silence in his hometown of Worksop at just aged 12 years old. However, unlike most groups formed before their teens, they actually turned professional, setting him on a path for a long career in the music industry as a singer, songwriter and producer. Having paid his dues playing working man's clubs and gigging relentlessly, in 1983 he was asked to write some songs for none other than Meat Loaf. Working with Michael Lee Addy, aka Meat, on his 1984 album Bad Attitude, eventually led to him signing his own recording deal in 1984. He enjoyed his first hit, Naughty Naughty, the following year, and was then approached by super producer David Foster to record a song for the iconic 80s movie St Elmo's Fire. It became a worldwide #1 smash hit and is still a regular on playlists today. That was just the first of his movie soundtrack hits. He wrote and performed Two Hearts for 1986's American Anthem, and in 1987 he enjoyed success with The Minute I Saw You from Three Men and a Baby. The same year he had a hit with the power ballad Restless Heart from the Running Man soundtrack. In 1986 he also released a duet with his now good friend Meat Loaf called Rock and Roll Mercenaries. And in 1987 his debut hit Naughty Naughty was repurposed for use in the horror movie Near Dark. He also performed Love Grammar for the movie Flight of the Spruce Goose. In total, he's released 22 singles and sold in excess of 10 million albums worldwide. He's toured with the likes of Toto, Bryan Adams, Tina Turner, Heart, the Beach Boys. He's written for countless artists, including Tom Jones, Roger Daltrey, and has had successful forays into acting and modelling. We are delighted to be welcoming him to the stage on the Saturday of this year's Forever Young Festival in July. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Parr. Hello, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Lovely
That was a lot. That was a lot to say.
It's quite an intro. I had no idea how much you'd done, and it was fabulous looking up, your backstory and finding out more about you. And we haven't actually met, but you may remember in early days of Rewind, me and my two friends standing at the front in black gowns with St Elmo's Fire written on them.
I looked at that the other day. I was looking through my pictures and I've got that picture. What a great... Yeah, you've got your back to me and it's across the hats.
And it said on each of our hats, one said Saint and the other one Elmo and Fire. Yeah, it was brilliant. I'm obviously a fan, so I'm delighted to meet you. It's lovely to have you coming to Forever Young. We can't wait. So we've got some questions sent in from our audience. Question 1, you were literally a child when you started your first band. At that age, did you intend to make a music career? And even then, how did your parents feel when things started to take off for you at such a young age?
I've been doing it younger than that. It's the first time I'd done it for money. I was like an only child, and I don't know if I was, seeking attention or what, but I used to do little shows in my back garden as one of those painful kids at 6, 7, 8, and used to do school plays. And so it was in my blood. And, first time we played was the Miners' Welfare in Worksop for 6 guineas back in the day. And but my dad, he became the manager. So he managed, because we were school kids and we were playing everywhere, he used to drive the truck. So he used to have an old army ambulance. And we did, I think, 150,000 miles before I left school, just gigging. I left school young, pretty thick.
But what a fantastic start into the music industry at that age, and to have your parents behind you fully for it and being your manager.
Wonderful.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
So you lived with, and became close friends with Meat Loaf soon after the massive success of Bat Out of Hell. How did you meet, and what was he like as a friend out of the public eye?
I'd signed a little tiny publishing contract. So the van had blown up, so had the band. So I had nothing going. And I was just writing songs and sending cassettes out in those days. Had a little publishing deal. And they sent the cassettes out. And the first call was Meat Loaf. And he liked the song. I didn't know him at that point. And they said he'd like to meet you. So I went up to Newcastle City Hall and he was playing there. and I went up there with 2 or 3 new songs, met him, and we just hit it off pretty quickly. And a couple of days later, he called me and said, "Come to Connecticut." And I lived with him and the family for quite a while we made the record. And we just stayed pals all the way through. We had a kind of bump in the middle where we weren't speaking through a strange set of events, but we've really been right up until his death, really. So it was, happy days.
Oh, fabulous. Was it intimidating, knowing that anything you wrote on that album would be compared, of course, to Bat Out of Hell?
Yeah, I really had done my homework on Jim Steinman. And Jim Steinman's style was very different to anybody else. A lot of his songs weren't just verse, bridge, chorus. They were sometimes 5 and 6, Wagnerian, almost operatic. So the songs that I originally had written for Meat Loaf were like that, like very Jim-esque. And so I think that's what he liked, and he used to introduce me as his new Jim when we go to look for new record deals. But obviously Jim's, again, another one who's passed, bless him. But, Jim was a genius, and those songs were totally unique, really. I mean, we've never heard, or we never will again. It was a marriage made in heaven, wasn't it? The Meat Loaf, Jim Steinman thing. It was just genius.
Absolutely. Okay, so I understand you turned down the opportunity to produce a Bette Midler album, but you recently featured Wind Beneath My Wings as one of your picks when you appeared on the 80s playlist on Virgin Radio. Does that mean that you maybe regretted that decision?
Absolutely. I was ignorant, it's like, it was really strange. Going back to Meat Loaf, when Meat Loaf recorded Dead Ringer with Cher, MTV had just begun, and they wouldn't play the record because they saw Cher as a Las Vegas entertainer in those days. You can't believe it now.
No.
And I think in my ignorance, I kind of lumped Bette into that kind of, cabaret type, and completely ignorant. And I missed one of the opportunities of my life of, somebody that had God-given talent and was just an electric personality. Was just ridiculous, to be given that opportunity. And it wasn't, hey, I'm too big, I turn it down. I was, I'd waited till a long time to get my record deal, and I didn't really want to get blown off course, but I should have done it. I should have done that. And I did, of course, pick Wind Beneath My Wings is such a classic.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, we all live and learn, so, life's a journey.
Never too old to learn.
You've contributed some amazing songs to movie soundtracks. Back in the 80s, the right theme song could literally make a movie, and a chart hit was one of the best forms of promotion for some films. Do you think that's still the case today? No,
I think sadly not. I think if it happened, it would be. But I think if you look at the phenomenal success of, if we were to think of the big 4 or 5 artists in the world now, particularly the English ones, I think their success has been their personal stories in their lyrics. And so I think the audience identifies with Love's Lost, and Heartbreak and everything else. Whereas I think with movies, it's learning to empathize with a subject that's not your own. Yeah. And I think that was why I got so lucky. I was good at that, at being able to watch a film, and if it got to me, I could usually get to the heart of it and really write it. And I think if you look back to, those in the 80s when, soundtrack songs became huge, and it was another horse in the team, wasn't it? Pulling the movie, into the spotlight. We have had it with the Bond themes a little bit. Yeah. Obviously that, it sounds crazy saying what I just said when you think that Sam Smith and Adele both had Oscar-winning songs, Billie Eilish, of course, as well. But it's changed. It's very rare. I often watch movies now and I think, crikey, you missed an opportunity to have a killer song.
Yeah.
Because when you do it, it's like even in Frozen, isn't it? The kids thing, the song just becomes this, and it elevates the film, and it really kind of timestamps it and makes it forever. So I do think that it changed. And but the other thing used to be, back in the day, you only got the shot to write for movies if you were in the charts. So as long as I was kind of current and whatever, I was always on that blackboard of get him. And then as soon as my kind of career started to decline a bit, I fell out of that. So I think I did about 10 movies very quickly, sound, themes, and then kind of fell out of it. Ironically, of late, I think we've had Spider-Man, Daddy's Home, Deadpool have all used music of mine now.
Yeah.
But they're songs from the 80s. And of course, you get this audience that have never heard of you or your songs. So you get this whole new audience of kids that they don't go, he's this boring old git from the 80s. They just go, I like that song. And, the song lives on merit. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the songs, and so they should. And as you say, they although things timestamp in our minds for where we were at that time, being able to, keep those songs alive by timestamping into new movies is, it's fantastic. Gives them that longevity.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And again, it eliminates that playlist thing, whereas it's impossible to get on the playlists.
Yeah. It's
so hard. It's like bands like Journey and Foreigner, Toto even, that can't really get on the radio with their new music. And some of it's very valid, but, it's almost like an anchor dragging behind them that they were from that period,
It's a different industry now, isn't it? Very different industry.
Very different. But it should be on merit as well.
Absolutely.
It should be on merit. But there's room for everybody if it's good enough,
Well, I think you read my mind, because the next question is, you've toured with some legendary artists, including Toto, Tina Turner, Heart. What do you remember as your favourite tour and why?
Tina.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I did 40 shows with Tina when she'd just come back, from obscurity and exploded and become this icon once again. Private Dancer Tour was just sell out. And I did 40 shows with her. And I used to do my opening set. And I was number one there. It's funny, she was number two with We Don't Need Another Hero. And she always gave me grief because I stopped to get into number one with that song. But I would do my show, and then I would get changed, wait for the lights to go down, and then I'd watch The Master. So I saw all the 40 shows. I got to know Tina a little, and we traveled a lot together aside from the shows. She is one of a handful of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely. So, St Elmo's Fire was ruled out for consideration for the Academy Award for Best Song, since it was written about wheelchair athlete Rick Hansen, rather than specifically for the film. Can you elaborate a little bit on the backstory of the song for our audience? And was it frustrating to be excluded from the Oscars?
It was such an incredible... I had great difficulty with St Elmo's Fire. I met with Joel Schumacher, David Foster and I met with Joel Schumacher. We'd written the music, we're really struggling with the lyric, and Joel came down and he'd written the film as well and directed it. But I just couldn't, for once, I was really struggling to come with the lyrics. And that's when David showed me a video cassette of this young guy. There was no internet then, there was no air of, and disability was back burner stuff. It wasn't Paralympics, never made it onto the TV very much. I mean, it's all since 2012, everything changed, didn't it? We changed a lot of that. Yeah. Britain has a lot to be proud of. And so I wrote the lyric. The lyric is about the movie, but really it's about Rick. I just made it ambiguous that I'm, that they think it's Demi Moore's Jeep or it's Emilio gets the girl, but really it's about the pair of wheels is a wheelchair. And for once in his life, a man has his time is when Rick finally wheeled 25,000 miles around the world in a wheelchair. He hadn't done it at the time, and he needed publicity, and he was trying to raise money. And it made. I remember when he actually completed the journey, and we did the show in Canada, and there was 1 million people lining the streets when he wheeled back into Vancouver. Everybody playing and singing the song, and yet in England when I came home, it made this stop press. Do you remember the bottom of the newspaper, and it went. Wheelchair athlete circumnavigates the globe, and it made 2 little tiny lines. So I always wanted to tell that story, and so I was with Tina particularly at the time. So I'd always introduce that song and tell the audience this is about a young man that is trying to do the impossible. And he did. And, we've raised $275 million now for spinal research and built the world's leading facility for spinal research. And that song was, that song became the campaign song. And David Foster and I played a lot of benefit shows just to kind of bring attention to it. And of course, fatally, I because I'd said it wasn't specific for the film, that breaks the rule of the Academy Awards that it's got to be specific. Yeah. And we were muted to be in the running, And, so, given my time over, I wouldn't change it. No. The band needed it, and to be aligned to something that is globally changing for disablement, and people with the same injury as that young man, if they're lucky and treated properly, can come out of I-Cord and other hospitals and able to walk again. That's bigger than hit records. It's bigger than hits and Oscars and everything, So no, I wouldn't change it.
No, well, that is a legacy far more, important to be proud of than an award on a shelf, isn't it? It really is. Absolutely.
Still like one. One.
A 2011 version of St Elmo's Fire that you reworked into Tim Tebow's Fire for Sports Nation went viral on YouTube with millions of views. Did you ever think that St Elmo's Fire would take on such a life of its own, including a dance remix in 2000?
The dance remix was, my son was about 19 or 20 then, and he was a aspiring actor, and he was on Hollyoaks and stuff. And so when I was approached for the dance version, I went, if my son can be in the video. So it was a bit of nepotism. So if you look at the video, this beautiful young man is my son doing the dance version, the Tommyknockers. Tim Tebow's Fire was kind of an absurdity. I'd gone up to ESPN, I think it was, in America. They just asked me would I play on the show. It was like a big sports network show. And it was 5 o'clock live across America. I didn't know Tim Tebow was there. And most people in England or in Britain won't know either. He became this phenomenal athlete that swept the world with it just very briefly. And anyway, I was about to sing St Elmo's Fire. They threw a football shirt at me and said, would you wear this? And I put it on and it said Tebow on it. And I didn't think anything. And I started playing St Elmo's live. And I'm looking at all the TV monitors and I can see this Tim Tebow. So just for fun, instead of St Elmo's Fire, I just started singing Tim Tebow's Fire. And of course, then it caught fire and that went viral. And they said, would I make so I just let them use the recording of it, and any money would go to the Tim Tebow Foundation, which was for good causes. But complete accident. It wasn't like, I'm going to cash in on this song, and I got nothing from it. But again, it was just a charitable thing. But started out as this absurd, live TV show. Be careful what you do live.
So how did co-writing the famous The Best a Man Can Get, the theme for the Gillette ads, how did that come about?
That was originally, do you remember Peter Powell, the DJ?
I do indeed.
On Radio 1. Yeah, used to be married to Anthea. Yeah, so I didn't know him, and I had a meeting with Peter, and Peter was repping for the agency BBD&O, a big American agency that looked after the Gillette account. And basically, Gillette were looking to turn a jingle into a song. And so the other writer was a guy called Jake Holmes, and he'd written Dazed and Confused for Led Zeppelin. So that was the thing. So stretch this jingle into The Best a Man Can Get. But really, for me, it was all about kids, because what is the best a man or a woman can get is a child, and so the song is entirely about being a parent and,
Oh,
you know,
fabulous.
the best amount a woman can get. So that's what that song is. And
Father to son, it's what we've always done to let the best of men can get.
yeah, it was going to be this big record. And I think they didn't really want me to sing it. They were going to try and get Diana Ross or Michael Bolton. And I think it just disappeared in the ether. But it's one of those, if I ever play it in my shows, people love it. And they don't know why they know it, because obviously it's in everybody's head, you know. Because I think they still play the tune, but you don't hear the words anymore on the Gillette commercials. But it was the longest running commercial. It ran for 30 years, that commercial,
Wow.
that song. Amazing,
Fantastic.
you know.
Yeah.
Again, just weird, you know.
You performed with the late Barry Humphries when you played the lead in the rock opera Paris. What was he like to work with?
Boy, oh boy, no, I don't know how you know this stuff. You're the only person ever to ask me about probably one of the greatest works I've ever been involved in. I made a dear friend of mine, David Mackay, and another writer, Australian guy called John English, wrote a rock opera called Paris, very much in a modern vein, like Jesus Christ Superstar was in its day. So it was rock and roll, had the London Symphony on it, and a gregarious group of people. Terence Donovan, Jason Donovan's dad was in it. Francis Rossi was in it, and Barry. And Demis Roussos, Harry Nielsen.
Wow.
And they do this great piece in it where Barry, I think, what a weird bunch of people. Barry Humphries, Demis Roussos, and Francis Rossi are three drunken guards that let the Trojan horse through the gates. You can imagine that song. So, yeah, just great times. And of course, sadly, Barry passed this
Recently,
week, but we are getting to that time. You know, I mean, I'm 70, and you know, I mean, you know, when I was a little lad, it was 70 years and 10. I'm hoping it's 70 years and 40. You know,
absolutely.
I'm going to work till I'm 90 and then decide what I'm going to do. That's my plan.
That's a very good aim, and if you don't think like that, you don't get there. So absolutely, I'm with you all the way.
Forever young.
Forever young, indeed. Thank you. So, John, you've been making a film for the last year, and I believe we can expect to see it enter for the Galway Film Festival.
Yeah, we've. I took a year out of music. It was again another story I wanted to tell. It's a documentary called Unconquered about two severely injured soldiers and their way back to normality through brotherhood, the love of family, and through their passion sport. It's a lovely little film, 28 minutes. And we've entered film festivals. And actually the day after Forever Young, for me, obviously I'm on the Saturday, is the Galway Film Festival. So we've entered it. Whether we're in the bake-off, who knows? But it's a passion thing with me. It's as I say, filmmaking is the new avenue I'm going down.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Okay, so last question. What was it like working with the legendary Brat Pack on the video for St Elmo's Fire? Are there any standout moments you can tell us about? And do you keep in touch?
Yes, with Rob, particularly with Rob Lowe. When they rebuilt, so imagine these young kids were the darlings of the day. So they were, for a British audience, if you imagine how big Friends was at its peak, these were like the Friends of the Brat Pack, Demi Moore, Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Judd Hirsch, Ali Sheedy. They were the darlings. And they finished the film and they were red hot. And the last thing they wanted to do was to be back on set to do this film, this video with this guy they'd never heard of. I mean, I had Naughty Naughty been a big hit, but they didn't know me. But it was a really big production. They built the set, it was huge, like a movie set, but they really didn't want to be there with me. And I remember the script said, Demi Moore is at the jukebox looking sad, and John walks down the stairs to comfort her. Well, you can imagine me lip syncing. That's not the way to cheer Demi Moore up, you know. And if you look at Rob, the weird thing is, movie actors, when you're on set with movie actors, they don't seem to do anything. It's all tiny. And I think to my embarrassment, maybe made a couple of suggestions if they did, because I'd done school plays. I mean, I had a lot of experience. Anyway, we did it. We broke the ice. And then I did a few things with Rob. We did a David Foster Foundation show where Rob and I did a duet. We did Morning the Beatles. And he used to get on stage with me a few times. You could never get him off. I think I'd done something with Demi on stage. And again, they just want to be rockers, you know. And so it went full circle from, you know, like the Antichrist to kind of, it's John, it's okay. And yeah, I spoke to Rob a few months ago. We did a podcast together with David Foster. And yeah, I mean, we're all getting older, you know. And it's funny. Everybody gets a bit more mellow and a bit more real, and that can only be good.
Absolutely, you find out what really matters in life, doesn't it? As you go through life, all your priorities change. So
totally.
Well, I have to say, it's been an absolute privilege and an honour. I'm delighted we've been able to, discuss some things that aren't often aired about you, because, I've been a fan for a long time and I wanted people to know there's so much more, to you than maybe they would know. I'm a great admirer, and I'm so delighted you're joining us this July, Saturday at Forever Young. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Mr. John Parr.
So kind. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Sincerely, thank you. I mean, you've asked me questions that nobody's dug into before, so thank you for really digging. I look forward to seeing everybody. It's going to be a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.